All right, welcome to Kinesiology Exercise Science 3150. We're going to be going through the human motion, and that's pretty much what kinesiology is. So we're going to be studying human motion. We're going to be using the Canvas course a good amount. So today I just want to make sure that we go over the syllabus and we go over the modules on the Canvas course. I tried to put up some useful information there. So if you're able to log on, actually, you know what, maybe I'll do, just make it easy for everybody and just share my screen. And I think everybody can see the screen right now. So I'm just gonna show you what I got. I made an announcement yesterday. All right, if you forget where we're gonna be meeting, we're gonna be meeting on this Zoom number every week. We're going to meet on Monday and Wednesday from 9:30 to 10:20 or 10:30 or whatever. Use this number here. In regards to the modules, if you notice, there's a syllabus here that's been posted for syllabus fall 2020. Let's just open that up and go through it. Hopefully we won't have issues with Zoom going forward. Let me let this download for a second. If you need me for anything, you can just give me a call, 617-285-0406. If you need, you can email me at either the daniel.young@becker.edu, or you can email me at, my real email is dan_young5@comcast.net. If you really want to get in touch with me, I think that's the easiest way, because otherwise I have to log on to the becker.edu in order to see the email. So if you just send it to my phone, or to the Comcast number, it'll just go to my phone and I'll see it right away. So feel free to do that. We're working with structural kinesiology this semester. Again, meeting Monday, Wednesday, 9:30 to 10:20. The Zoom number is there. If you need me, that's my email address. What we're going to do is we're not going to try to repeat anatomy and physiology. John, have you had anatomy and physiology as a prereq for this course at all? Just thumbs up. Okay, so I'm not going to repeat anatomy and physiology. I'm assuming that there is a basic understanding of the muscles and maybe origin, insertion of muscles and the muscle actions and things, but this is a kinesiology course. So I'd like to try to get into a little bit more about biomechanics and tissues and kinetics and how injuries might occur. So it's not going to be a repeat of anatomy and physiology. We will talk a little bit about musculoskeletal anatomy when we talk about the hip and the knee and the shoulder. We will talk about movement patterns such as overhead throwing and walking. We will talk about the joints that are involved in each of those, and we'll talk a little bit about Newton's laws of motion. For the most part, we're going to have lectures and discussions on Zoom, and I'll try to get as many Zoom demonstrations as I can. If you have any learning disabilities or anything, I think that you should make sure that you seek out the director of the disability services at your school, and any accommodations that are needed I will sign off on, but it's my job to make sure that the course is run pretty fairly for everybody. So if you have some type of arrangement with the disability services or a similar department at Becker, then I will certainly honor that. Don't cheat. There's no attendance policy. This is your school. This is the work that you're paying for, and you're at home. So we should be able to all be pretty much attentive. I'd like not to make any makeups for the quizzes and exams, because I'm going to give you at least 2 weeks to do each of the quizzes and a week to do the exams. They're all going to be online. All the assignments, rather, not quizzes, but assignments are already posted, and they'll be available kind of as the semester goes. There's going to be a first exam, which is worth 20%, a second exam, which is worth 25%, 4 assignments, which is worth 25%, and a final exam. The course is supposed to have a lab, but we're not going to be meeting, so it's really hard for me to do hands-on things. So I'm going to try to make the course as informative and hands-on as possible. Provide you with as many practical applications or practical information that you can use later on as much as possible. Week 1, we're going to be doing course introduction, and we're not going to be assigning groups because there are no groups, but we'll go over Newton's laws and types of motion, and I've already posted chapter 1 and lecture 1 and all sorts of stuff in the first module that I'll show you. But in any event, week 1 is August 24th to 26th, and then week 2, and we just keep going. Assignment number 1, I believe, is already available today, and it's going to be due Friday, September 11th. And then we have assignment number 2 is going to be due on October 2nd, and assignment 2 is going to be available the day that assignment 1 is due. So you should have a good amount of time to finish what you got to do. We're going to review for the exam on October 5th, and exam number 1 is going to be online, and you can take it anytime between October 7th and October 9th. So you got 3 days to take it. I'll make sure that you have plenty of time. I don't know, I can't remember if I put a time limit on. I don't think I did. Assignment 3, likewise, is going to be available the day that assignment number 2 is due. And then I think you have another 20 days to do that assignment. Then we have exam number 2 is going to be on the 28th to the 30th, same thing, online. Most of the exams, I believe, are going to be short answer, but like short answer is like a sentence or a drawing. It's going to be, I think, 30 questions on it. The assignments are pretty much 5 questions, 20 points each. I don't think that they're going to be overly complicated. Then we're going to have assignment number 4 is due the week before Thanksgiving. It's going to be due actually 11/27 on Thanksgiving, but again, you have, I believe, a month to get it done. And then you have review for the final exam on 11/30, the day that you get back from Thanksgiving, and then your final exams are going to be due by the end of the week on the week of December 4th. So that's pretty much the syllabus. If you need anything in terms of, again, any accommodations, please let me know. Feel free to reach out. Let's just go to the modules. I didn't have a long time to put everything together, but I think I got, you know, as much as I could in there. So you have the syllabus here, and then you have the first module. We'll go over lecture 1 today and finish up whatever we got to do on lecture 1 tomorrow on Wednesday. If you go here, here's a PDF of the book, chapter 1. I'll try to make sure that I keep up with this, at least until you have books in the bookstore, but I don't have any problem with putting all the information that you'll need up on the Blackboard website, on Canvas. So take a look at chapter 1. That should be make it easy for you to get started, considering the fact that, one second, let me go to module 1. Considering the fact that there's no book. I mean, I really just got this class on Thursday, so. And then we have another MP4. It's I've taught this class before at UMass Boston, and I audio taped everything. It's 11. I want to make sure that we have plenty of time. We're going to start with lecturing, lecture 1. So what I did is I uploaded all of the audio lectures. I'm aware that Silas is calling in from Washington. It might be difficult for you to pay attention because it's early. If so, then there's an MP4 in each of the modules, kinetics and kinematics. This is part 1, part 2. There's a bone MP4. There's all sorts of information out there that you can review. If you have to miss class because of COVID or other things, I understand. So I tried to make it so that you would have the information. Here, there's a little picture of Newton's laws. I think that we'll have to download it and open it up. All right, this just makes Newton's first 3 laws pretty easy to understand. We'll go over that today. And then if you go to this module number 1, I also put a PDF of a different textbook that goes over Newton's laws in detail and tells you about vectors and stuff. So anytime there's extra information that you'll need, I'll try to scan it all and put it in there for you. But in any event, this is a pretty good starting point for Newton's laws of motion. Here's the first law of inertia. Here's the second law of acceleration, and then equal and opposite reactions. And then it starts to talk about vectors and what a force vector is and how to add vectors together, because we'll have to get into that later, because a force is signified by an arrow with a head on the arrow in a particular direction. And curiously enough, muscles provide forces. So you can model muscle activity using vectors, and that's kind of cool, because we'll get into things like poor patellar tracking and imbalance of muscles and how that can cause pain. We'll talk a little bit about the consequences of hyperpronation on your tibial plateau and your patellar tendon and patellar tracking and things like that. So we'll get into vector addition. We'll also talk about levers and stress strain curves. I like stress strain curves. And I might have gone over a little bit of this stuff with you guys in the very beginning of our lifespan motor development thing, but kinesiology is my bag, and this is, we'll expand on a lot of that stuff, especially the degrees of freedom problem that we have, and things like that. So, and then here's the PowerPoint presentation for lecture 1. So there's a good amount of information already up there that you guys can take a look at. Same thing for lecture 2, and then for the kinetics and kinematics and all of that information, I'll keep scanning and putting the chapters up there so everybody has all the information that they might need. All right. Does anybody have any questions at all? Does anybody have any issues or any questions? Now, I think it's really helpful if you can put your faces up on the screen. Then I can see if anybody has, you know, facial expressions about what I'm talking about. I mean, maybe if that's annoying, I get you, but I mean, in this day and age, using this stuff, I can see, and I don't really care if you go to sleep. It's not about that. It's just more about me being able to teach effectively. And sometimes looking at a blank screen, like Jose, I can see whether or not your eyes are going like this and whether or not you understand what I'm talking about. And that feedback is really helpful for a teacher. So I think that, does anybody have any questions? Just raise a hand if you have any questions, if you have any concerns. All right, Silas. Yeah, it's also just nice to see you guys, right? Nice to see who I'm talking to. And so does anybody, hello? What's up, Zach?
Yes. Yeah, sorry. My laptop camera is broken right now, so I'm trying to get it fixed, but once that's fixed, I'll get it back.
All good. Now, I think that it's clear that this is the very first day and we're already having issues with Zoom. At least I was. So if there are issues, please give me a little bit of time. I will never miss class. I will always be on. If I'm not on right away, it's because there's some type of glitch with Zoom or the internet or something like that. So just be patient. And if there isn't class, then I think that we have enough in terms of information already posted here with the PD, with the MP4s and stuff, but I'm not planning on missing any classes this semester, all right? I think that we may as well just get into it. So I'm just gonna open up the lecture 1 PowerPoint. And I think that I'll keep screen sharing with you, because if I screen share, then I can use all my annotation things. Might make it so it's a little bit more interactive. So let me just go down here and move you guys to the side. All right, and maybe I'll zoom it up here. All right, so welcome to Exercise in Health Sciences 3150, or Exercise Science 3150. It's kinesiology. This is lecture 1. I think that we're not going to be doing groups in terms of grading. Everything's going to be online. So I just want to start talking about kinesiology and get as far as we can. All right. So right now, I think that what I would like to do is I would like to impact how you think, act, and feel about kinesiology. I'd also like to try to define kinesiology and talk about the laws of motion, because kinesiology is the study of human motion. So if we're going to be studying that, we should really talk about the fundamental laws of motion, which is why we're going to talk about Newton. And then we're going to talk about different types of motion. This is me. I got a PhD at Boston University. I studied Parkinson's disease and visual perception, and I really am interested in dynamic systems and how we're able to utilize our bodies, which are incredibly complex, to do things that we rarely make mistakes doing. You might want to study ecological psychology and James J. Gibson. And anyway, we can just move on from that. My email is dan_young5@comcast.net or daniel.young@becker.edu. You can give me a call if you want, 617-285-0406. Maybe I'll edit this out on the stuff that I post, or just make it private for you guys. But I mean, I'm a private guy, so if you're going to be sick and can't make it, you don't have to call me. If you have, immediate issues and things like that about class, feel free to. This is a little bit wrong. We're not going to have quizzes. We're going to have assignments. I want the assignments to be short answers, so the quizzes would have been multiple choice, but we're not going to do that. We're going to have 3 exams. There's not going to be any homework or a project, because you guys can't work on your own. And I usually do IRATs and GRATs, but because we're online, we're not going to do that. So this is all a little bit antiquated. All the stuff in the syllabus is now correct. So I'm just going to move past this. Feel free to give me a call here. All right. I don't think anybody on the planet uses Skype anymore. So, all right. So right now you might think that kinesiology is difficult, or it's going to be hard to memorize a lot of stuff, origin, insertion, action, but we're really not going to do that. We're going to try to make it so that rather than it being boring and overwhelming, that we can make it interesting. So I'd like to try to make it so that you think, act, and feel differently towards kinesiology. It might be the case that you're taking kinesiology solely to get credit, or because you have to, or at the end of the final exam, maybe you will not act using kinesiology anymore, but hopefully you do. Hopefully at the end you think that kinesiology is thought-provoking, that it's fun and interesting, and maybe you can use it when you become a PT or a nurse, or maybe it can help you become a better coach in the gym. So today what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to define kinesiology, and then go through Newton's laws of motion and give you examples of each law of motion that you might be familiar with. And then we're going to try to summarize terms like translation, rotation, general motion, and maybe even talk about active and passive movements. All right. If you have any questions, just come off mic and stop me. All right, because I have you guys minimized towards the side of the screen so I can see. I'm pretty sure you guys can see when I go like that and like that. So kinesiology in Greek, kinein means movement, and ology, like biology and histology and all these things. Ology is the study of. So kinesiology is the study of movement, but we're not talking about all movements, all right, like breathing and blinking of your eye and your lungs expanding and contracting. We're really talking about the movements of your arms and your limbs and the joints and muscles and the forces and torques and things that create those motions. So there's different ways of describing motion. You could say that motion happens at a particular speed, or it goes from here to there and it covers a particular displacement or a distance. And then there's other ways that you can explain using forces and torques. So when you describe motion using speed, velocity, distance traveled, those things are all kinematics. And when you're using forces and torques and moments, it's kinetics. All right. So you could think about it like I could tell you how far and how fast a car drives, and that's telling you and describing the actual motion of the car itself. And I could also describe the amount of torque and horsepower that the car has. And that's kind of the difference between kinematics and kinetics. Kinematics is the mathematics part. And you can use the mathematics to come up with velocity and acceleration and The kinetics part is talking about how the body moves, the torques and the forces and the way that the muscles are going to be interacting and stuff. So we're going to talk a little bit about gait and jumping and throwing and eccentric and concentric muscle contractions. And we're going to also talk about the difference between, because we're talking about human movement, then like, what is the human? Where does the human end? Where does the human begin? And one of the difficult things about human movement is that the human being can move in an infinite number of ways, and seemingly we're able to control those ways so very few mistakes happen in our motion. I don't remember the last time I made a mistake, touching my nose or walking on the street or buttering a piece of toast. So how is it that we can take this human being that can move so incredibly intricately and be able to organize those movements so anything can really happen? So because we're talking about the study of human movement, we're going to be talking about motion. And I think it's probably the very most appropriate thing to just start with Newton's first 3 laws of motion. Newton did, I guess, write 4 laws, but the 4th law has to do with gravity and the way that huge celestial bodies attract each other. So we're not going to really apply that in this course. So I just want to go through the first 3 laws of motion. The first law is every body or every object remains in its particular state of motion unless it's acted upon by some other force. So if you have a block that's sitting on a table, that block is going to continue motionless on the table unless somebody pushes it, or the table is inclined so that the block can slide down because of gravity. Or you could also think of it that once an object is moving, it's going to continue moving unless there's something to stop it from moving. So every object is going to remain in its particular state of motion, either not moving or moving, unless it's acted upon by an external force like somebody stopping it, or gravity, or friction, or something like that. Another way of discussing this motion is momentum is equal to mass times velocity. So momentum, I guess another word for it is inertia. So something that is incredibly massive, that's moving incredibly fast, is going to have a lot of momentum. And the term momentum refers to how difficult it is to stop that particular object. So one of the examples that we can talk about is, say, for instance, a sumo wrestler or a football player who's an offensive or defensive lineman, right? And football players in general are going to be pretty massive, and hopefully they can do a 40 in relatively low time. So the combination of that mass and their speed is going to make it so it's much more difficult for them to be tackled. Or a sumo wrestler. You know, sumo wrestlers are huge and massive, and their punch off the line has to be very, very quick. You could also think of a gymnast, for instance. A gymnast might not be very massive, but they are trying to move very quickly. And because they're moving very quickly, in spite of the fact that they're not very massive, they might have a lot of momentum, which would carry them off the floor and allow them to do flips and things like that. So the greater the momentum, the greater resistance to the change in that state of motion, or the greater the momentum, the more difficult it is to stop that particular object. An interesting example of momentum would be the Challenger disaster. I don't know if anybody remembers, like maybe 10 years ago now, they had the space shuttle was coming in and it broke apart. And they found that what happened is on takeoff, there was a little teeny piece of foam. They said it was the size of a cube. It was a small cube of foam, broke off the ignition tank, off of the fuel tank, and that small piece of foam bashed into the wing. And then what happened is that small piece of foam made a huge hole in the wing, and when the space shuttle tried to come back into entry, that hole made it so that there was too much friction, and the shuttle ended up breaking up. And the question was, like, how could something so light create such a huge hole in the bottom of the wing? Well, it's because although it was a piece of foam which had very little mass, in order to get out of the Earth's atmosphere, that piece of mass had to go about 16,000 miles an hour. And because of that, there was a huge amount of momentum. And when that piece of foam hit the wing, the momentum was great, and it caused a huge gaping hole in the wing, and ended up being a catastrophic problem. So the combination of mass and velocity is something that we're going to take into account, or at least Newton took into account. Another thing that I would say about velocity, and we'll probably talk about this later, is the combination of work and velocity is power. Actually, it's a combination of work divided by time is power, and work is force divided by distance, and therefore time divided by distance is velocity, so force times velocity is power. So what I try to get my athletes to do in gymnastics is not be strong. I try to get them to be powerful. I try to get them to distribute the amount of force that they can distribute with a very fast velocity. That's one of the reasons why somebody like Ronda Rousey, who might not necessarily be as strong as a man her size, she might be more powerful because she can distribute that force with a great velocity. All right, so we'll talk about velocity and its relationship to a number of things like power, but also the ability to produce force using muscle. There's a force-velocity relationship that we'll have to get into. In any event, Newton's first law is the law of momentum. Newton's second law is a change in the acceleration of a body occurs in the same direction as the forces that caused it. One cool thing about force is that forces are what muscles produce. Tendon and ligament are not able to actively contract with actin and myosin. They're pretty much passive workers. They can store energy, they can store tension, they can store elastic energy. Your muscles can also store elastic energy as well, but your muscles are unique because they can actually make a force. All right, and forces are going to cause things like your limbs to increase in their velocity over time. So muscles are going to make your body move. All right, and the more mass there is, the more force it's going to require in order for you to change the velocity of that particular object. So one of the interesting things is with strength and conditioning, we can manipulate the amount of force that our muscles can produce, and therefore we can make this mass, which is our limbs and our body, move at a faster rate. So that's a pretty good thing. The last Newton's law that we would discuss is Newton's third law, and that is for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. So, you know, why when you're standing don't your legs crush underneath the weight of your upper body? Because as your upper body pushes down on your acetabulum is pushing back up on your upper body at an equal and opposite force. And if those forces weren't equal and opposite, then indeed your lower body would be crushed because of the weight of your upper body. But thank goodness that we have equal and opposite forces. Another example of equal and opposite forces is like jumping. When you jump, you push down into the ground. And if the ground was like a beach, then the ground would dissipate the force and it would be more difficult to jump off of that surface. But usually we're jumping off of things like, for instance, wood or a track or a spring or a trampoline. And what happens is when your feet push down, the surface pushes back, and the push of the surface is actually what's going to propel you off the ground so you can jump. All right, so when I put my foot on the ground and the ground responds by pushing back up on my foot, that's called a ground reaction force. All right, when I step on my foot and my upper body pushes down on my acetabulum, that's called a joint reaction force. Or when I take my hand and I push it into the wall and my elbow receives a force from the wall and my humerus pushes back through my elbow, that would also be another example of a joint reaction force. So for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. If I punch somebody in the arm really hard, not only is their arm going to get hurt, but my hand is also going to incur a force as well. So those would be examples of Newton's third law. Does anybody have any questions about what we're going over right now? If you do, just raise your hand and I can address it. All right, looks like we're good. So I'm going to keep moving on. All right. Got about 10 more minutes. So this is Newton's fourth law. It has to do with how big an object is and how far the object is away from it, from each other. And if the mass 1 here is the sun and mass 2 over here is the earth, that's a pretty huge product right over there. And that's going to make it so that there's a huge force of gravitation between the two. And that's also dependent upon how far those objects are away from each other. So if you take the moon and you move it further away from the earth, then there's going to be less gravity on the moon. So it has to do, but this is, again, has to do with stars and planets and stuff. So we're really not going to get too much into that. So that would be a brief description of Newton's laws. I'm pretty sure if you've taken physics before, you probably have heard about Newton's laws before, but we're going to move on to a couple of other definitions. The first definition is that of translation. And when you are walking or I'm moving my arm, like my hand like this, or I'm sliding something across a flat surface, that object is known to translate. Or if I throw a knuckleball, and it's not rotating through the air, that knuckleball is translating. Because your arms and your limbs have an axis of rotation, for the most part, when we lift our arms up and down, you're going to experience rotation and not translation. But translation is when all points of an object, so you have this point and that point, when the object moves from here to here, this point moved a particular distance, and this point also moved a particular distance. In straight line or rectilinear translation, the distances that those particular points are moving are going to be the same. You could also have curvilinear translation where something like gravity or air resistance or something like that is pulling an object downwards, or curved in any particular manner, not necessarily downwards, but I can throw a pretty cool riser in baseball and that would be potentially an example of curvilinear translation. That's when the points in the object also move the same distance and they have the same change in direction as well, but they're just doing it in a curved manner. So we'll talk about translation, but for the most part, we're going to be talking about rotations. And rotations are where an object moves the same angle, but different distances. Let me quickly see the next slide. Yeah. All right, so all points move the same angle, but different distances. So here, if you consider a point very close to the axis, it's going to be moving a very small distance compared to something on the outside of the object, like the figure skater who's skating in the very inside of the line of figure skaters is going to be just going around an axis, but the figure skater who's outside the line is going to be going a really long distance, and she has to skate much faster than the person who's skating in the middle. But they're all going the same angular distance. So in rotation, all points move the same angle, but different distances. And you could have all sorts of different types of rotations. Typically, something is going to rotate around an axis. And that's what your joints are. And your joints are all connected, and your bones are all connected to each other using joints. And that's why when you fire your quadricep muscle or your pectoralis major or your, I don't know, most muscles for that matter, your fingers, that's why when you fire those muscles, because there's an axis of rotation here, for the most part, we have rotation. We have very little translation. And if I do have translation of my hand, it's because I have rotation of a shoulder or rotation of some other joint. So most movements in the human body are going to be referred to as rotations. And forces cause translation, but moments or torques cause rotation. So we're going to have to talk about torques and talk about the kinematics of motion and how the kinetics of motion rather. So how does a torque provided at the muscle provide for motion or velocity at the end effector? But we'll get into that probably next lecture. And most motions are a combination of translation and rotation, like a flipping gymnast or somebody doing a 360 slam dunk, or even, say, for instance, a thrown baseball or a golf ball. All right, those are going to be translating in some type of manner, but they're also going to be rotating as the object flies through space itself. So there's also other kinds of motion. There's active movement, and active movements are initiated by muscles, and passive movements are initiated by some type of outside external force like gravity or even someone else pushing you. Active movements are like lifting your arm, lifting your leg, actively running, and a passive movement is like falling from a tree or doing like a trust fall with your friend, or if you're laying down and somebody is doing PNF, proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation or something like that, then that PT is providing some type of external force. Gravity is an external force, and so is wind. And so there are external forces which are mostly going to act passively on you, where you're going to be passive and your change in status or movement is created by some type of external thing. And you also have your muscles, which are able to provide active forces, active meaning that the muscle itself is doing something. It's like the difference between passively stretching. I could sit in a straddle and I could like let gravity pull me down, or I could grab my legs with my hands and use my muscles to pull me through the stretch. One would be passive stretching and another would be active stretching. And I really try to implement as much active stretching as I can with the kids in my, my program. So I guess next class we'll be going over kinematics and kinetics. We'll have to define some terms for you guys for both. And again, kinematics is more a description of the actual motion that's occurring. And kinetics is more a description of the aspects of the movement of the active muscles, like torque and moments and such, that are resulting in the kinematics of motion. So kinematics is going to be more about acceleration, velocity, and distance traveled, and kinetics is going to be more like torque and lever systems and such. So I think that that's pretty much where we are with our lecture today. It's about 10:15. Does anybody have any other questions or anything like that? No, Jose, where are you from, my man? You got to come on, Mike, my man. Yeah, come on, Mike. Press. Where
Can
you?
you hear me now?
Yeah.
I'm from Fall River.
Fall River, man. I used to go to the Fall River shipyard when I was little with my family.
Yeah, where are you from? Are you close to Fall River?
I live in Framingham, but I'm from Braintree, Mass. And I went to UMass Amherst back in the day, and then
Yeah.
went to BU, and then taught at UMass Boston for a while. And
Yeah. I was always close to Braintree because I transferred to Becker from Curry. So
okay, yeah, a friend of mine, he was a basketball player on Becker College, is
yeah,
on his team.
it's that place. So
Cool. Well, it's nice to see you, Jose. All
nice
right,
to see
Jordan,
you too.
where are you from, my man?
G.
See?
Right over by next Jersey City.
And you're a big Redskins fan?
I'm an Eagles fan.
Eagles fan. Interesting. Who is their quarterback, bro? Do they have one this year? Yeah, hold on. I'm going to mute Jose because I think it's So you're a big Eagles fan, Jordan? Man, I can't hear. And you think there's going to be a season? Thumbs up. Is there going to be a football season, you think? Thumbs up? All right, let's hope. And
We
Silas
better have a baseball season. That's all I'm saying. Like for school.
is already going, but I think the Red Sox have to step it up a little bit.
Well, Red Sox will be lucky to win 20 games this year, but it's fine.
Lucky to win.
Rebuilding.
And Silas, you're from the West Coast, is that true?
Yeah, I'm from a small town called Sequim, Washington. About 2 hours west of Seattle. Yep.
All right, how's the weather there?
It doesn't get very hot here. Probably like 70 during the day.
And before COVID, like last semester, did you travel to Becker and stay at Becker, and now you're just staying at home because of everything?
So actually, I did not attend Becker last year. I did the Running Start program where I live, so I'm more advanced than a lot of the other freshmen. So yeah.
Freshman this year?
Yeah.
Man, if I could go back to being a freshman, that would be fun. That would be fun. Let me tell you, as a freshman, you should get a job and you should save all of your money and get a 401k and a Roth IRA and do all of that stuff. Suggestion to you, buddy. All right.
I'm
And
actually from Washington too.
what'd you say?
I'm actually from Washington too.
Zachary, so do you know Silas?
I know Squim actually. I'm not too far. I'm from Bremerton.
Oh yeah, I know where that is.
Yeah, but I live in Massachusetts. I live in Worcester now.
Worcester's all right. It's coming like up and coming, yeah.
Yeah.
You're on a team, a sports team.
No, I'm not. I'm just just study exercise science because I enjoy it.
That's fun. I hope that I can put together a pretty interesting course for you guys. I remember Emily over here from my last course, Lifespan Motor Development. Nice to see you. How was your summer?
It was good. How was yours?
It was pretty good. I mean, I don't mind being by myself too much, so I took a lot of time to do that and to work on coaching online. I mean, I coached online every single day. If you look at 6for6 Productions on YouTube, you'll see, I mean, I must have put 150 different videos. I didn't miss one day. So it was a lot, but I think that what we have to do is step up for our communities. And so nice to see. If we need any help with muscle anatomy, I'm looking at that chart right by your shoulder over there. So I'm assuming that you can be our go-to.
I'll try.
Sweet. And then the last, but certainly not least, is John. John, how was your summer, man?
Good.
Good. Listen to any good music? Should I listen to something that you're, oh, hey, have you ever heard of the band Morphine?
No.
Oh my God. One of my favorite bands, Jose, Silas,
Okay.
Emily, Morphine. Oh, this guy, 1999, he died on stage from obviously doing huge amounts of probably not good things, but he's got a 2-string bass. He takes 2 strings off and only uses 2 strings on his bass. Then he's a lead singer. His name was Mark Sandman. And then he's got a saxophone player who plays 2 saxophones, one on either side of his mouth. And then they got a drummer. It's just a 3-piece band called Morphine. Sick music. So that's my suggestion to you. You got anything for me?
Orbit culture.
Orbit Culture.
Yes.
I appreciate it. Maybe I'll go listen to YouTube right now.
Okay.
All right. So nice to see everybody. I hope that you guys are able to get onto to your Canvas website. If you need anything, feel free to reach out to me. Does anybody have any questions before we go? Yeah. What's up, Jose?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. So for the lab, so we're not doing a lab?
No, because we can't really meet together.
All right.
So what I did is I spoke to the interim dean, and they said that what I can do is lecture on Monday and Wednesday. And again, a lot of the course is almost lab based to the way that I teach it. We're not going to be doing origin, insertion, muscle action, and then doing that. What I'm going to try to do is teach you what stress strain curves are. I'm going to try to teach you, and we have a couple of different assignments, reading articles that through the assignments, hopefully you'll be able to get some information. I think that when we talk about the joints and mechanisms for injury, I think that that will be informative and a little bit outside the box of what you're expecting. So we're not going to meet because we don't have lab, but I'm going to try to make it so that the course is as dynamic as I can make it for you. And I'm confident that I'm going to be able to provide you with a course that is not only informative but straightforward. I'm not going to give you pop quizzes. The information that's online is going to be online all the time. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me. The quizzes and the assignments are going to be available as much as I can make them available. You'll have plenty of time to do the exams. Feel free to reach out to me. If you need me to meet on Zoom, just send me an email and we'll make an appointment. I can help you as much as possible. All right, so it's just going to be on Monday and Wednesday, and I'll try to stay on as long as I can. I have other obligations later on, but there's no reason why we have to be done immediately at 10:20. If I have to finish the lecture, I don't mind going a little bit longer. Anything else? We good, Jose?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it.
Okay, hope you guys have.
I'm just worried because no other teachers has like emailed me or anything about meeting online. Like, this is the only class that I have on Zoom. So like, I don't know if.
I can't speak for anybody else. I just know that
No, yeah.
I was given the assignment on Thursday, and I'm confident that I'm going to be able to provide a good opportunity for you guys to learn for the semester. So I'm going to do the best I can. I'll try to make sure that the Canvas site gets better and better and better, but I had a small amount of time to get what I had up there already, and I think probably what I have is good enough for the whole semester, but I'm going to try to make it so that you guys are as happy with me as possible. All right, if you need me for anything, just reach out here. I'll even just, here's my personal email address, and here's my number. All right, if you need me, just reach out. I'll do the best I can for you, okay? Emily, we Gucci? Yeah, Silas, good? Zach, good? Everybody's good? Yeah?
Yep,
All
thank
right, take a look at the stuff that's on the website, and I'll see you guys Monday at 9:30. Hopefully the Zoom works a little bit better than it did, but it still didn't work, and we still had a pretty good day, so hope you have a good day, everybody.